So the first thing I find myself doing in any situation where fear arises is thinking about what's the worst that could happen. What's the worst case scenario? How
Yeah.
scary is that? For fighting, worst case scenario for me would be, getting knocked out in front of all my friends and family, you know,
Yeah.
maybe even 10 seconds in and I get hit with a hook or a head kick and I'm out, just KO'd out cold or and injured, whatever, even die, even though I didn't think of that. But
Yeah.
I thought the worst case scenario is I get in a few seconds, I get knocked out. And then I ask myself, okay, I imagine the worst case scenario and think, can I live with that if that happens? If the answer is yes, then I move forward, right? And most of the time, the answer is yes, I can live with that. Right there, I can't think of an example
Yeah.
right now of, nah, it's not worth it.
No, I think what we just talked about the other day, you kind of postponing the RV trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that really wasn't out of fear.
No, but you calculated it, right?
Yeah.
You looked at what's the worst case scenario, and you're like, okay, it's really not worth that risk right now
Mm-hmm.
because there is some fear associated with it, right? Like, what if I go out and do all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about do you look at all of the fear of not doing it, right? So a lot of times we think of fear as like, what am I afraid of if I do it?
Mm-hmm.
But do you ever look at, okay, what am I afraid of if I don't do it?
Oh, for sure. I look at that more.
I do too.
Yeah.
But I think that's different. I think a lot of people, if they hear fear, they're thinking like boogeyman, outcome, like what am I afraid of trying it? And I'd always ask you guys to think, what are you afraid of if you don't try it? Because then that usually for me will propel me forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, well, if I don't try this, I'm afraid I'll never have that experience. I won't know what I could have been.
Yeah.
I won't know what doors could have opened if I'd have stepped into fear instead of hiding from it.
Yeah. And I think actually you've said this before, but I think one of the scariest thoughts is meeting the version of you at its full potential.
Yeah, who was that was Ed Milet
Mm.
said that the scariest thing on earth is to die and go to wherever you believe you go and see the version of who you could have been and you don't recognize yourself.
Yeah.
That I'm like, oh, that still gives me chills.
That
I'm
just
like,
gave me chills right now. I was
what?
like, oh
I
shit.
do all this stuff and I get there. I'm like, damn, that's who I could have been.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid.
Mm-hmm.
If I wouldn't have, like our last episode, if I wouldn't have lived freely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I look at that a lot though. I agree. I do look at the fear of what's the worst case scenario if I do it. But then I also love to look at, okay, what is the worst case scenario if I don't do it?
Yeah.
What happens? And the reality is I usually err on action. I'll try it
Yeah.
at least once. And then you have experience. And then you know, okay, is this worth pursuing more? Like you wanted to do one fight. I initially wanted to do one fight to prove to myself I could do it. Then I did it and I was like, that wasn't near as scary as I thought.
Right.
I'm gonna do another one. And then my wife was like, no, don't do it. And it's but even fighting, like even the cage fighting, when I look back and reflect on that, if I hadn't pursued that, I'll be honest, this wouldn't be happening. Like it literally fighting for Sparta and fighting and meeting Jeff and Becca and Rob and that team opened up a whole different pathway in my life that had been there. I had always had these things, these ideas, but I wasn't in a circle of people that were doing this kind of stuff. Stuff like you do with business and taking risk. And, I was in a much more go to work, a more traditional way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I signed up for that first fight and I started writing about it. And all of a sudden I remembered I like writing. And wait a second, people actually will read what I write. And then Jeff was like, hey, we're having a media day. Come talk. I was like, shit, I forgot I like talking.
Mm-hmm.
and then wait, well, everybody wants to wear shirts. Well, let's create shirts to give to charity.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I forgot I'm way bigger than this police job. There's this whole other part of me that I had forgotten about. That was the fear of, if I don't ever do this, what? And I didn't know what that first fight would lead to. I just knew I was afraid of not doing it because I wanted the experience.
Yeah.
Think about it now, like look at my life now. If I hadn't done that first fight in 2016, in 2020, right, I own a gym. I get to coach you guys. And I help be part of your dreams coming true. The book, the speaking, like all of that. I'm telling you, it starts with that one fear and going into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think hearing you say that is kind of uncovering some things about the purpose of fighting in life. And I think a big fight in life is fighting comfort, because it's easy to get comfortable, and you don't see that there's anything wrong, right? We're living that traditional life. You're going through the motions. But I think fighting comfort and also fighting to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens. That's where new opportunity happens. And that's where you can really identify the things that truly bring you joy and fulfillment. Like you're like, oh shit, I love writing. This is great. Oh, now I'm writing a book, right? But it took you doing something that made you uncomfortable, fighting that comfort. Like today, mental health is a big topic.
Yeah.
And I hear the term anxiety used all the time, anxiety disorders and all that. And don't get me wrong, I know there are some serious disorders out there that need help, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody fights anxiety every single day. We're going to be anxious of something. We're going to be a little fearful of something. I mean, public speaking is ranked a bigger fear than death. You know, people would rather die than speak in front of people. So there's even a little bit of anxiety in social exchange, especially now that we have masks up and everything,
right,
to where we have to fight comfort, because when we get comfortable and stagnant, that's when decay happens. That's when you're dying, right? We need movement and change to spur life, to spur growth. And it's easy, I think, when you're living a certain type of, you use the word traditional life or blueprint life, to where you have everything and you're pretty comfortable. It's easy to just stay in that comfortable realm and not push yourself to feel uncomfortable.